Well, hello everyone, and this is Sarah Beater with Mana Reiki, and today I'll be discussing. We're going to be discussing what are chakras. Chakras are very much a part of what Reiki is, and is a very important aspect because it is regarding ourselves, our body, and what is balanced within our body and how it affects ourselves physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. So, with that, you'll have to forgive me. I'm still learning a lot about the technology. So if you see me flipping back and forth, I'm still getting used to how to use things. As I move on and get a little bit better as far as like with enhancing things, just have patience with me. I appreciate you guys all being patient. So thank you. So, with that, we're going to go into it. What are chakras? Okay, so moving on, we're going to move on to what are chakras? So, chakras are basically the literal meaning of chakras is the spinning wheel. It's a concept of the subtle body, our energy body. So, meaning, the role in emotional, mental, physical well being. What happens when they're our chakras, and there are 7 chakras. Um, so, the root, the sacral, the solar plexus, the heart, the throat, the third eye, and the crown chakra. And each area is in a different part of our body. Just looking at this diagram, you can see where they are technically placed within the body. So there are 7 of them, and we're going to go through. I'm going to give a brief synopsis of each one and what they govern, and some of the things, the individual attributes of each one. So, with that, I'm going to go through. I mentioned each chakra, so we're going to start with the root chakra. Okay, so the root chakra is right here. Let's look at a deeper view of our chakras. Here I have a picture of the chakras, once again, the 7. And if we look closer at the bottom here, we see the root chakra. The root chakra is the location at the base of the spine. So it governs, so if we're looking at this like how it pertains to ourselves, it talks about, survival mode, being secure within yourself, being grounded, and we're going to talk more about that. And the element of this area is earth. And if we think about the root, that makes a lot of sense because it is, it's in the earth. Okay, so and then the affirmation, if you think of affirmations, like positive affirmations, like things that we read on social media, when we think of this area of the body, the root, we think of I am. Okay, so when we're looking at like our emotions, like I mentioned before, this talks about safety and security. Okay, so now if we're looking at the body and the organs, what governs this area, we would include the spine, the rectum, our legs, and our arms and the circulatory system. Okay, and um, when we are in balance, this area would within ourselves, we would feel very safe and secure. We're centered. We feel grounded, um, and we're just happy to be alive. Now, if it's blocked, if we notice that it's blocked, now this can look and come up in our body, in our cells. If we're fearing something, if we're really anxious, insecure, self pity, self doubt, or aggressive. Okay, now if it's overactive, this can come out as being greedy, being lustful for power, being very aggressive, materialistic, or cynical. Okay, so if you notice that the blocked behavior and overactive behavior, there's similarities there. So sometimes it's hard to tell in people if they are, if that area is blocked or it's overactive. So it's kind of depending on the person. Now, I will also mention that there's some great foods that we can eat to help balance these areas, these chakras out. So for the root, if we eat more like things that come from the ground, which makes sense, right? Because it's the root, like beets, parsnips, apples, rutabagas, pomegranates, and then any kind of protein. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the orange here. This is the sacral chakra. Now, the sacral chakra is more kind of located in our pelvis area. Okay, so we're going to go through what that kind of governs. Okay, so it's the lower abdomen. That's where it's located. Now, the element, if we're considering element, is water. Okay, so when we think of the ethereal or holistic approaches, we're thinking of water. Talks a lot about our emotions. Okay, how we feel. Like how we're feeling today. Okay, so now the other emotions that we talk about within the sacral chakra are our sexuality, our desire, and our pleasure. This also has to do a lot with where our creativity comes from. Okay, and our passion projects. What we love to do, what we love to create. Okay. Now, if we're talking about the body and the organs, so this governs, our reproductive organs, our kidneys, bowels, immune system. Okay, so when we are imbalanced, okay, and I will say too, the reason why I mentioned the organs is because, if our chakras are out of balance in any way, where if they're blocked or overactive, this can, express itself physically too, not just emotionally. So when I mean like physically, for example, in the sacral, for example, if you have a kidney stone, or if like maybe you suffer from urinary tract infections, that's your sacral area, right? Your sacral chakra. So basically, it's saying because you have, like, maybe you have a UTI or a kidney stone, then that's meaning that your sacral chakra is out of balance in some way. So it's a way for you to identify, maybe my sacral chakra is out of balance, so I need to investigate more. So if our sacral chakra is imbalanced, it can come up as passion, creativity. We have a healthy libido, we're very optimistic and very open-minded. However, if it comes up as we're blocked in that area, it can be low libido, fear of intimacy, we're aloof, destructive, and we're very dependent on people. If it's overactive, then we can be over emotional, fixated on, intimacy, um, very hedonistic, or very manipulative. Okay, so that's just what some emotions that or behaviors that could possibly come up. Now, um, as far as foods that can help us heal and put this back more into balance, once again, which is interesting, um, like the sacral chakra, for foods is the same thing, same foods as it is for the root. And you can kind of see that just within the diagram is because it's still very close to the earth. So meaning this is also an area where it's important to feel grounded, to feel closer to the earth. So there again, beets, parsnips, apples, rutabagas, pomegranates, and protein. Anything that is very like grown in the earth, those types of foods are really good for this area. All right, so now we're going to move on to the solar plexus. Okay, this is kind of I would say probably the belly button area, and this governs our confidence. Okay, power, personality, strength, determination. Now, I did forget to mention with the sacral chakra, if you're thinking as a affirmation, this would be more of an I feel. Okay, because obviously, what we mentioned before, this is like our emotional body. So, like, how am I feeling today? Now, back to the solar plexus. Um, this really governs our confidence within ourselves. Okay, and this is represented by the color yellow. Okay, so this is now the element is governed like with the element of fire. All right. So, and that makes sense because it's, our confidence. When we think of our confidence, we think of what it's similar to sacral, but it also has to talk about like our inner strength and how we persevere. What lights us up, what keeps us going. Okay, so this is our personal power, our purpose, right? Our purpose in life. Now, if we're looking at as far as the body and organs, this is an area like our central nervous system, our pancreas, liver, our skin, and digestive tract. So there again, if any of those areas in our body are, not feeling well, then within a chakra standpoint, that is meaning that area of chakra might be out of balance. Okay, so when it is in balance, though, balanced behaviors, they look like being very confident and in control, very optimistic, ambitious, joyful, and easygoing. So that's a balanced solar plexus. However, if it's blocked or if it's overactive, it can show up as low self-esteem and feeling powerless, pessimistic, or over analytical. If it's an overdrive, then we're very power hungry, domineering, a perfectionist, and very critical. Okay. Now, if we're looking at foods, things to eat to help this area, which is so cool, I think anyway, is the for this, like all the healing foods are yellow. So if you look, obviously, like on the solar plexus, it's represented by yellow. Okay, so like anything yellow, like yellow peppers, yellow lentils, bananas, oats, corn, and squash. Okay, so those are healing foods for the solar plexus. Moving on to the heart. Okay, so obviously when I say heart, that's the middle part of our body. Now, I did forget to mention like the affirmation once again. So this area talks about I do. So action, taking action. Okay. So the heart is represented by green. So when I was first learning this, when you think of the heart, you always think of red. They, like heart, like I love, you just think of like, Valentine's Day colors, like red, pink. But in chakras, it the heart is represented by the color green. Okay, so um, the heart, the element would be air. Okay, and um, this area, like as far as feelings, feeling loved, obviously, and feeling balanced. The body and the organs it represents are the heart, obviously, and then the thymus, lower lungs, the circulatory system, and the immune system. So if you noticed, I had mentioned earlier that uh, the sacral, um, it's the sacral and the root. Some of these organs kind of overlap with other chakras, and obviously that's because like our circulatory system and our immune system are throughout our body, so that makes sense. Um, Now, if this chakra is in balance, then we're feeling very generous and loving and compassionate, peaceful, open, and empathetic. Okay. And if it's feeling blocked, blocked behavior can come up and be expressed as lack of empathy, bitter, hateful, trust issues, and then jealousy. Now, if it's overactive, this can come up as, being jealous, self-sacrificing, codependence, or like giving too much. Okay. Now, once again, here we are with our green. We have green foods for healing foods. So some of the foods I mentioned are like spinach, broccoli, kale, peas, and other leafy greens. Okay, so that's the heart chakra. Now looking at the affirmation, and it's pretty obvious, like because of the heart, it's talking about the affirmation I love. Okay, now we're going to move on to the throat. The throat is represented by the color blue, and obviously the throat, when you think of the throat, you think of, talking, communication, creativity, how you express yourself, what inspires you. Okay, and the affirmation would be like I talk. So, that's pretty evident, right? So there again, like emotions, like that would be like our self-expression, expansion, and healing. So the area of the bodies this governs would be the throat, obviously, the respiratory system, teeth, vocal cords, and your thyroid. So if any of those areas are affected, then, obviously that's meaning like, it's out of balance. So I'm just thinking personally with myself, I get a lot of, when I used to be a teacher, I would use my voice quite a bit. And so I was always getting sore throats, or I'd lose my voice. So if I'm thinking about myself and like overactive behaviors, in the throat chakra, that would make a lot of sense because I'm using my voice too much. So um, basically to put it back into balance, I would need to really regulate and maybe like not talk so much, which is tough as a teacher, obviously. Um, but coming back to, in good balance, we are able to express ourselves, a good communicator, we're trustworthy, we're calm, and we're honest. However, if it's blocked, we have a hard time expressing ourselves. We're secretive, quiet, shy, moody, and not a good listener. Okay, and then if it's very overactive, then we're very opinionated, loud, critical, gossipy. We interrupt or we have harsh words. Okay, so that's just an example there. So here we are once again with our healing foods are all blue, which is cool. I love that the healing foods match the colors. So in this case, it would be like blueberries, blue raspberries, kelp, and figs. So I guess I didn't realize that figs were blue. I don't know for sure, but that's really interesting to me. So, and then once again, that governs like with the affirmation of I talk. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the third eye. Okay, so if we're looking at our picture here, we see the third eye is right here. Now, it's this picture isn't the greatest as far as showing that, because it looks like it would be like kind of where our mouth should be, when in all actuality the third eye is actually located in between our eyes. It's kind of our forehead area, in between like our eyebrows. That's the third eye. Okay, and um, when we think of elements, this has to do with light. And we're kind of going closer and closer to the ethereal, meaning, the higher realms, like the universal, the connection with our universe. So this governs our intuition, our imagination, our gut feelings. What, like, I always talk about like really listen to your gut. Listen to what do you feel? And a lot of times, when we say that, we kind of have a gut feeling about something. More than likely, your gut feeling is right. So this is very important, and it allows us to meditate and to trust. So this is I see as an affirmation. Okay. So moving on to the area of the body it governs. So this would be like the pituitary gland, the pineal gland, the eyes, the brain, and your sinuses. So there again, if like you're having sinus infections or eye problems, anything with glands and the pituitary, pineal, your brain, those kinds of things, then, that's something like to explore, as far as your chakras being maybe out of balance. Okay, so if it is in balance, though, we're very intuitive and faithful, imaginative. We have a lot of clarity of mind. So clarity, knowing your mind is clear. Like you don't have any doubts, like you just know. Okay. Now if it's blocked, we could have poor judgment, lack of focus, poor imagination, or you might be feeling depressed. Okay, and if it's overactive, we might have nightmares, delusions, hallucinations, or we may be obsessive. So, for me personally, this is an area that I'm constantly having to keep in balance. And definitely, I am not perfect. I'm a worrier. I suffer from anxiety on a personal level. I do. I'm an overthinker. So this is an area I'm constantly, really working on. For me, the third eye is very much like an area where I definitely have to work on this every single day. Um, so looking at foods, uh, this is purple. Once again, purple foods so purple potatoes, blackberries, plums, and purple grapes. Okay, so those are just some areas for the third eye. And like I mentioned, this has to do with our, intuition, our trust, and the affirmation is I see. Now, the final main chakra, the seventh chakra, this is kind of, the one that we think of ethereal. It's like in the higher realms, the 5D, and that's, like the light workers or the healers mentioned, the 5D is the crown chakra. Okay, so this is like the top of the head. So it does, like here again on this diagram, it shows like it kind of almost in the forehead area. It's actually the top. And if you think about it, this is where we connect with our spirituality, how we connect with the universe, the higher realms. Okay. And this has to do with understanding. I understand our consciousness, our knowledge, fulfillment, spirituality. Okay. So, as far as an element, this would be our consciousness. This talks about our bliss, our spirituality. And if we're looking at the body, this has everything to do with our mind. Everything to do with our mind. And that's it. I mean, that's the only thing that it really governs. So when you're connected, when you're in balance with it, you're very present, you're wise, and you have universal love, meaning that you love all, regardless of, what they believe, what you believe. You just have that all encompassing love for everyone and everything. Okay, so if it's out of balance, if it's blocked, it's learning difficulties, you're, maybe disconnected from reality, anger, lack of faith. If it's overactive, very dogmatic, judgmental, ungrounded, and spiritual addiction. Okay, so there again, for me personally, this is one where I have to get out of my head. I will say personally, I will say with my Reiki practitioner that I see for myself, she always mentions that my feet are very cold, and basically meaning that I'm not putting a lot of energy within my lower chakras. I'm putting a lot of energy into my higher chakras, So basically overthinking, worrying. So in order for me to be more balanced, I need to focus on those lower chakras and really do a lot of different strategies of helping myself stay more grounded, being in those lower chakras. So this one is the crown chakra is the only chakra where there's no foods that are going to help with healing. This one's more for getting out into fresh air and sunlight and nature. Okay, these are things that are going to help you to feel more